Hello guys, let's talk about Terran hotkeys today. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I have set it up and why I designed it the way I did. So let's start with STV and the structure building. So I pretty much have everything on default except science facility. And the reason for that is that notice how everything for Terran is actually on the left side of the keyboard except the bunker. So when I press BC, BS, BR, BB, BE, BT, BA, everything is on my left side. So I can press B with my pointer finger and then the next letter for any of those buildings. And this is the same in this case, where I have like VF, VS, VA, and VC. This is the one I changed. Normally the science facility is I, but I think it's extremely uncomfortable to actually press that. And I don't like to have almost anything on the right side of the keyboard. So I put it next to the V, which right now it's extremely comfortable to build my science facility. And for bunker, I didn't change it because out of a habit. But to be fair, if you are new, you should change it as well. Probably to something like Q would be perfect because Q is not occupied, so you could easily use that. The point is, again, you want to press something with pointer finger and then with another finger something on the left side of your keyboard, probably your ring finger. I left the bunker like that because this is actually not commonly made structure. Actually, I mean, you build it in almost every game, but you usually do it once. So yeah, that's why, just out of a habit. So let's move on to units and the commands hotkeys. This one is very important, and I will explain you why I have like move on Z, pattern Q, etc. So move on Z is just I wanted to find a hotkey that is not occupied by almost anything else for me and is still on the left side of the keyboard, which is Z. Z is perfect for me. Many people use W for that, but I will explain you in a moment why I don't like that. I have patrol on Q as well. Same reason. I have almost nothing on Q, and Q is on the left side of the keyboard. I want those move commands to be completely separate for another hotkey. Of course, SNA stop is sometimes problematic, to be honest, because STV is on S. Sometimes when you spam at the beginning of the game, you can actually stop your STVs if you are not careful. So S is not perfect for S, but of course I keep it because of like legacy reasons, and I don't want to change it. I'm so used to that, so it will stay there. Same with A move. The reason that attack move is on A is why I don't have anything hotkeyed to my A button. Because again, I want the same situation as for Z and Q. So move and patrol. And hold position. I didn't change it, although you might if you are starting, but you have to figure out the key for yourself. I told you already my reasons, so you can figure out something similar. The point why I kept the hold position on H is that when I have my hand naturally put on my keyboard, H is still very comfortable to hit. J would be already a little bit of a stretch, not too much, but a little bit. And H is very comfortable still, so I didn't have to touch it at all. Now, Steampack. I have Steampack on T because this is the same hotkey I use in Academy for Steampack, right here. So that's my brain operates like that, and I like that. Like if I have an upgrade on certain key, I like to have the ability on the same key if possible. And this is actually a little bit of exception for me from rules because look, Firebat is also the same because it doesn't have anything else from the Marines. But for Ghost, I already have my other rule where every most used spell is on E for me. So every time something is most commonly used, I will always use E for that. It will be the same for Yamato for battle cruisers, for example. It will be the same for mines. So as you can see, this is something that I set up for myself. E is very, very comfortable. In many games, you use stuff by pressing E, so it's very, very natural if you're coming from different game even. So that's why I have it like that. Of course, for Ghost, the C is also like Cloak. This is the same for Raves. I have the upgrade on C and the ability on C. That's very important. Then there is the nuke. Nuke I have on N. It's the same as making the nuclear silo in command center for me. And the same hotkey is making nuke from the nuclear silo itself. So those three are on N for me. N is not already that comfortable to use, but it's still pretty okay. It's under age. Now if I'm trying, it's not even a stretch when I put my hand on it. So it's completely fine. Okay, Vulture. Like I said, E. That's extremely important. You will be using this mine ability as like in almost every game, at least for me, because I also play Vulture versus Zerg. So this is extremely important. Always E. This is extremely comfortable. It's great for me. Now tanks. This is probably the most important hotkeys of all you will ever change. You don't have to have them set up exactly like me, but in this video I'm explaining why I have to set up like that. So E and D. The most important thing about it, you have to have those on separate hotkeys. Because in the old version, pre-remastered, this was on O for both of them, and it was terrible because in the mid fight, first of all, it was on the right side of the keyboard, which is already hard to press. Then, when I was pressing O to siege, actually when tank sieges, the icon for siege tank immediately changes to unsiege. So if you pressed O twice, your tanks were sieging and immediately unsieging without even shooting once, which in most cases immediately lost you a fight. So yeah, that's the reason you have to have this on separate hotkeys. This is the most important of them all, I would think. Goliath, nothing special. So this is regular hotkeys. Brave, again, C for cloaking, D for decloak. So look how I have this logic set up, right? Where for tanks I have D for undoing something, and also for the Wraith I have something on D to undo my action. So C and D. Dropship. This will be the same for bunker. So E again, because this is the most commonly used action for me. So E to load something to dropship, D to unload. This is exactly the same as for bunker for me. Again, following the same logic, I don't want anything ambiguous in those hotkeys. Make it as easy for your brain as possible, because a lot of things in StarCraft is automated. Battle cruisers. Again, most used ability, E. In Vessel, again, there is an exception, and I explain why. Because EMP was the default hotkey, and it suits EMP very well. I didn't want to change that because of the legacy reasons for me. If you are very new, then you could probably put Irradiate on it, because Irradiate you will use probably more often than EMP. But you could argue the vessels are used in both matchup only once. Like you only go for EMP in TVP, only for Irradiate in TVZ. So, but vessel is more critical unit in TVZ. So generally, Irradiate is more used, but R is easy enough for me. So I don't want to change it because EMP was always on E. Defense Matrix, also legacy hotkey on D, pretty good already. You don't have to change anything. And Valkyrie is just like Goliath, nothing changes there, so let's move on. So now we are in building section. Command Center. Default hotkey for SCVS. That's pretty important. Rally point hotkey doesn't really matter. This is the default. I never use it because you can set everything with right click nowadays. Pre-patch 1.15, I think, or even earlier than that, you actually couldn't use right click to set up hotkeys. So people had to use this hotkey to set up rally. And then it had more impact, but back in the day you also couldn't change that. It was all the same. Anyway, we don't use that. This is the most obsolete hotkey of them all. Comsat on C, this is default, nuke on N, and this is very important. X for liftoff. I had liftoff on Q once, but the problem was that, look, I have pattern on Q. And it happened to me in one game. I was trying to micro my vulture. Again, it was actually in game versus Eonzerg in BSL. And I was patroning my vulture, and I wanted to make an STV at the same time, but I did something wrong, and I left off my CC. I went back to my base, and my CC was almost like out of my base already. So at this moment, I said, okay, can never happen to me again. So I changed it to X. X is also not used for anything else. This is the unique hotkey only for liftoff. Next comes at as default hotkey. Very good already. No need to change. Nuclear silo and for nuke and there. These hotkeys are very good in my opinion. So W for attack, A for armor. This is default for eBay, so we leave it like that. But it will make a difference for the armor. Hold on, you will see what I mean. And now, this is the probably second most important thing for me. Marine on W. Firebat, Ghost, and Medics, these are defaults, so I just didn't change them. They're actually pretty good already because they are on the left side of the keyboard, but Marine is normally on M. And while it might not even be that bad because very often people have their production building hotkey to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can macro quite comfortably pressing 4M, 5M, 6M, 7M, 8M. I don't do that. I think for me it's not comfortable, so I actually use W for that. So I go like 4W, 5W, 6W, 7W, 8W to produce from barracks, and this is extremely important to be on the same hotkey as Vulture, because you will make those two units the most in your games. Those are two most frequently built units for Terran. In TVZ, if you play Bio, you will hit this button many times, and this is the same for the Vulture. And the important part, because I at the beginning I had it on A, because A is even more comfortable in my opinion than W. But I couldn't stand one thing about it, and I will present you why. So let's look at this example. For the needs of this video, I rebinded my hotkey for Marine on A. Let's assume I'm doing something with these Marines, and now I want to go and build something for my barracks. So I have my Marines hotkey, selected, and now I go here to do something. Now I go back to macro, and I misclick my first barracks, let's say. But in my brain, I wanted to click an A, so I will now press A on my keyboard. And now when I want to actually select the barrack, my Marines will start attacking here, but my brain will be like, okay, I already pressed again, so I want to make Marines from the next barracks, and it looks, instead of making Marines, I will just attack my barracks over and over. And that was so annoying to me. That's why I won't use A for Marines, because this was actually happening surprisingly frequently for me. That's why I have this on W and not A. I hope this explains things a little. Okay, let's go back to the hotkeys. Turret, doesn't matter. You never use any hotkeys anyway from there. Academy. So I have my range on Q. Normally it's on U, but I think that's extremely uncomfortable. You can actually miss while going up for you during the game. Q I never missed, I think. So Q is extremely good for this hotkey, and I like it, so I just set it up like that. Of course, anything else like W, E is probably pretty good as well, but for me it's Q. I'm satisfied with that. Steam, of course, T, because this is the same as the ability, remember? It could be on E. If you are new, you would like to be more within the rules I said about, so like most used ability, you could go for E for Steam. But for legacy reasons, I was used to that. T is good enough, so I never changed that. So that's my reason. Here, bunker, the same as dropship, right? Load, unload, ED. You actually, when you get more advanced, you sometimes use E for load because you will find yourself in situations like goons or hydras trying to snipe your STVs next to the bunker, and you might save them by loading them up. For factory, this is vulture, the same exact reason as marine. We already covered that. T is default for tank, G is default for Goliath, everything else is normal. C is also the default for the machine shop. Here, two big changes. Very important. So I have my speed on R. It could be wherever on the left side of the keyboard, but the point is not making on I, like the default is I, and that's pretty bad. Like you can see that default is I. I hate it. I think every time you reach to the right side of the keyboard, your APM just drops. And mechanical aspect is very important in this game. Same with mines. Normally this is terrible, especially because I want my ability to be the same hotkey as the upgrade for this ability. So for siege mode, I have it on S. The default is S. I cannot put it on E because the E is mines. I think this is much important actually for me. You put mines many more times than you siege in game. So it stayed on S. It's very good hotkey anyway. It's on the left side of the keyboard, very near everything. So, well, I have no choice. It cannot be on the same hotkey as the siege, and especially on siege, I wouldn't like that because I consider this an ability to siege, and this is like unsiege is undoing the ability. Anyway, siege on S. Goliath range upgrade. Default is C. Stays in C. Pretty good hotkey already. No need to change. Import. So one thing I changed here is Valkyrie. Normally it's why I don't like it. It is acceptable. I have to admit that you could not change that, but since I like Valkyries actually very much, it's one of my favorite units in StarCraft. I just wanted to make it more comfortably because I used it sometimes, and E is perfect because E is not occupied by any of other units, so that's pretty good. For armory, there is one crucial change. So, like you notice in engineering bank, you have W and A for the same unit type. It's attack and armor, which is infantry, and there for my mech, I want the same thing because A, plating is in P by default, which is terrible. This is just terrible hotkey. So we want W for that, ideally A for that because again, this is the same as engineering by. And for ships, this is default, and I like it. I have to admit, like SH, I'm okay with that. This is legacy for me. Still feels pretty well good. Like I don't have problem hitting H, so that's completely fine. There is something that in control tower, of course, cloak on C because Rave ability is on C. Energy upgrade on T. This is something that I actually did everywhere except one specific thing, which is medics, because I cannot put energy upgrade for medics on T because this is Steam for me. But if you rearrange, like you put Steam on E and then you can use the Hotkeys reactor on T. Anyway, this is not that important. You never did do this upgrade anyway, almost never. So it's whatever. But yeah, I like to keep those rules, so I will talk a little bit about exceptions as well, of course. So yeah, T for energy upgrade. You almost never do that, but I like to follow the pattern. Same for vessels, T for energy upgrade. But remember we had R for irradiate, and now for irradiate upgrade we want the same thing, right? Because R and R here. And of course every building liftoff is still the same. Actually, Physics Labs is on P. That's bad hotkey. I would advise you to change it. I didn't change it because again, like legacy, but this is actually pretty bad hotkey. Like on P, to reach P is far away from the keyboard. I maybe think about changing it myself, probably. Yeah, I think I'll maybe do that. The the thing with these hotkeys, you use it so rarely that I don't even notice. Now I notice that I have it so badly hotkeyed, but well, for now it will stay for me. But you should change it to anything on the left side of the keyboard which you feel comfortable with. Here. Battlecruiser upgrade, of course. E for Yamato, most used spell also. E on Yamato here. By default it's Y. It's very uncomfortable in my opinion too. Because very often you will have like battlecruisers on one hotkey because it will be your most important units. You will want to do some cloning and then Y is just not comfortable enough because if you press Y and shift your hand stretches a little bit already. But E and shift is very easy to press together. And energy upgrade on T. And for Ghost, this is something I changed from O to R. This is the side upgrade. What this upgrade does is let you cast the nuke from farther away. nuke has 2 more range, which is very useful, and that's why when I play Ghost, I do this upgrade. I know Ghosts are not commonly used, but I still like them, and I sometimes play them for memes. Sometimes I play them actually in PvP versus like arbiters. I personally like that. I know it's not the best, but it's like my stylistic choice. Anyway, I just put it on R. It's much better than O. Lockdown, again, from L to E, much better. Same for Ghost, Lockdown is on E. And Cloak is natural, and the reactor again, Terran energy upgrades are always called reactors. And from M to T, again, this energy upgrade is actually very useful because when you have Ghost, which have 250 energy, then they can cast 2 lockdowns and a cloak. So you could cloak first and then still cast 2 lockdowns. Without this upgrade, you would never be able to do that. This is like niche situation, also not that commonly used, but for me, it's important to have this setup like that. Okay, guys, I think that's it for Terran. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.